Mr. President, according to an analysis conducted by AFP, the Russian army achieved its most significant advances in Ukraine throughout November, marking their largest territorial gains over the entire past year. Mr. President Zelensky, to what extent does this situation now compel everyone towards a negotiated settlement? And what's emerging from the latest discussions in Florida, from those exchanges you had with negotiators, is a third version of the American plan. Perhaps this third version will be presented to President Putin tomorrow. Is this third version, how acceptable is it for you and for Europeans? And especially, what is included there regarding territories? Blogger, thank you for the question. Regarding any advancements, it's quite open information. I would get it not from the media, but from the official report of the General Staff of Ukraine. And certainly Russia has made some advances. Certainly Russia has several offensive actions and several operations. Not one of these operations has been successful. But undoubtedly fierce battles are ongoing in Pokrovsk itself and in other directions. For example, our guys are having more success in the Kupiansk direction, although Russia claims it has captured Kupiansk. And honestly, we've pretty much cleared everyone out of this city. So you understand, I approach this information and we all must approach it objectively. There are many Russian soldiers, and their greatest losses were in the past months. The past month, that is October, the greatest losses of Russian troops in almost 4 years of war. This is with video confirmation. 25,500 soldiers were killed, and the same goes for kilometers. There are no secrets. There are, without a doubt, some advances being made. But this is such a war. Do you know what kind of war it is? It's, excuse the word, such a live contact line. It changes in one direction and then the other. Once more Russian troops have arrived, they might be able to advance in some areas. And the war, the advance isn't made by equipment, it's by 10, 20, 30 men, then they're destroyed, then they retreat. Of course, it's difficult for us, there are more of them, but their losses are also greater. We focus on people's survival. And now there are several important decisions regarding the fair manning of our brigades with military personnel. I don't want to go into these details now. I understand your question is about something else, how these military actions on the battlefield affect the end of the war. Daily losses, significant losses for the Russians, but we also suffer losses. And undoubtedly we want this war to end. And we have wanted that since the very first day. Every single day, it's the people that we feel sorry for. The question, to be honest, isn't about meters or kilometers, but what is the actual cost of all of this? The problem isn't their ability to move forward, the problem is their unwillingness to stop. And when someone says the issue is territory, the issue is always about people. The issue of territory or advancement is always linked to security guarantees. Ukraine must know precisely that once the war ends, security guarantees will be in place for its entire territory to prevent another invasion. This is the main point. And in this there can be no question. Other interpretations. This is connected precisely, exactly to this, and the pressure on Ukraine, both political and military, it will continue. He operates in various directions, not only on the battlefield. And we are witnessing an increase in missile and drone strikes. This is a serious pressure, not only psychological, but also a physical pressure on our population, simply to break the Ukrainian people. I'm not even talking about the political steps concerning this situation. Well, here we will somehow fulfill our constitutional duties. Thank you.
Lembrescu, on behalf of American mediators, will be in Moscow for the next 2 days. but they will play the role of a mediator to coordinate Russia's positions on all topics. As of today, there is no completed plan regarding the territories. It can only be completed and finalized by President Zelensky. As for assets, security guarantees, EU accession, and sanctions, only Europeans can deal with these matters. So, this is a preliminary phase, and I want to commend the efforts, the peaceful efforts of American mediators, and those efforts that will be carried out further. B-blogger, Olesia Leshchenko, the public broadcaster of Ukraine. So, Mr. President, regarding yesterday's negotiations, my first question to you: were territorial concessions discussed? You already mentioned pressure. Was there any pressure regarding these concessions? Was the demarcation line discussed? And what was the final outcome? And perhaps, was there anything about what security guarantees the US can provide for Ukraine in case of a ceasefire? Announcer. The mission of the President, HRBP Carlos, stated that the EU is preparing the new sanctions package against Russia.
Leonid Slotsky. The EU will prepare new sanctions against Russia. What will be included in the 20th package? Will there be, in particular, separate restrictions for oil companies like Lukoil and a strengthening of these sanctions? Volodymyr Zelensky. Thank you for your questions. First of all, we had meetings yesterday and today. Yes, there were several meeting sessions. The final meetings just wrapped up probably half an hour ago. And perhaps even more importantly, when we were connecting with the negotiators and with Emmanuel over the telephone. So these discussions, they are an ongoing process. It has not yet come to its conclusion. And I will tell you quite frankly, the territorial question is the most difficult one. The issue of recovery funds, in my honest opinion, and we've discussed this, it's certainly difficult to accept without our European partners present because the money is in Europe. I don't think that's very fair. And the question of security guarantees, which is very important. Specifics from the United States of America and specifics from Europe. So I would say these are the three main themes, the core issues, and at the same time the triggers. Yes, and we need to be extremely cautious here. I want to thank our negotiating teams, and the plan looks much better. And it was roughly understood that regarding issues of various types concerning different territorial regions, the discussion lasted 6.5 hours just now. Only on these specific points, meaning negotiations are underway. Negotiators from the United States want to share, they've shared their visions with us. They want to share these visions with the Russian side. We will receive full feedback. I will receive feedback from our delegation because it won't be over the phone. Tomorrow they will arrive in Ireland and they will tell me step by step where we currently stand in their negotiations. And I also understand that the Russian side will similarly receive the corresponding The appropriate reaction of the United States and the Russian side's reaction, sorry. I think that after this, we will see approximately where we stand, right? And then I am still confident that we have discussions with our European partners about the points I mentioned, and we expect discussions with the President of the United States of America regarding probably key aspects that are very complex. Thank you. Your question was about sanctions on oil and gas, right? Because I was with my translator and you spoke in English. So we decided the 19th package of sanctions. We are preparing the 20th. And in parallel, the Americans decided to include in the sanctions, which is brand new, the two main oil and gas companies. So I think the level of pressure on the oil and gas companies and industry in Russia will be in the weeks to come at its highest since the war began. And I think this is a game changer, and the pressure on the Russian economy will clearly increase. On top of that, you should not underestimate what we have increased in parallel during the past few weeks, which is our fight against the Shadow Fleet. And we know that 40% of the war effort in Russia is financed through this Shadow Fleet. So this marks the very first time we've seen such a comprehensive, I would say holistic approach concerning both Russian oil and gas. Firstly, because we had a US decision on sanctions, and secondly, because we significantly increased our pressure on the Shadow Fleet. So I really believe that in the weeks to come, the pressure on the Russian economy and the capacity of Russia to finance the war effort will drastically change. Mr. President Zelensky, Mr. President Macron, good morning. Mathieu Desmoulins for TF1 LCI. Pause. A corruption scandal has already rocked Ukraine, and it cost Andriy Yermak, head of the office, his position on Friday. How do you believe this corruption scandal affect the negotiations? And these negotiations, which are now entering their final phase? And to you, President Macron? Currently, Belgium holds a very specific position on the issue of using frozen assets. How can the Belgians be brought to your side during the next EU Council? As for the frozen assets, I have believed from the very beginning that we will find an option that will technically allow us to respond to all legitimate requests. I have very great respect for De Wever, the Prime Minister. He had very technical questions, but we will find technical answers to these by the next European Council, that is by Christmas. And in the coming days, we still have to announce the Commission. The Commission is expected to announce some important decisions in the very near future, and we must truly ensure control, maintaining it in full compliance with all international regulations. But in the interim, we must ensure Ukraine's financial predictability for the upcoming years should the war persist, and we are currently, together with all partners, adhering to all regulations, continuing our efforts on this. As for corruption, I will just, yes, then yield the floor to President Zelensky, but we are very carefully monitoring what is happening, and indeed the authorities, the anti-corruption agencies that were established here in Ukraine, they are in fact carrying out their responsibilities, and it was their dedicated efforts, so to speak, that have ultimately led to this. And so the necessary work has now been accomplished. Do we have the right to lecture Ukraine, which has a scandal of this kind? I think that if everything is happening now within the framework of justice, under special procedures, I this is all normal. And I think that right now you won't find a single anti-corruption case in Russia. This is something that should concern everyone. And why is that? Because there are no independent anti-corruption bodies to fight it, and there is no independent justice system in place. Therefore, if all the money goes to war and there's no one to report to, that's how this system operates. But the system in Ukraine functions differently. And also, when we talk about the French system, everything works differently there. But in Russia, it's a true dictatorship. Thank you for your question. Your question was about how these specific things are impacting Ukraine. All of them are influencing the situation and the negotiation process. Absolutely all of them. Every single circumstance and every single person. There's a great deal happening. In my particular case, I am the president of a country that is at war. Each and every day I make decisions, and they are all quite varied. And for the most part, these decisions are extremely challenging. And ever since the very beginning of this war, I have been making and will continue to make only those decisions that are solely focused on the strengthening of Ukraine. I thank you. Good day. Lydia Taran, Ukraine Forum. I have an expected yet unexpected question for you. Many people are, of course, waiting for an answer to it. Have you already decided how long the list of candidates is? Perhaps it's a short list, or perhaps you already know the name. Who and when will the next head of the president's office be appointed? Perhaps you could name him right today. This is for the French president.
My question to the President of France. There's an observation that despite all efforts, Europeans are not sufficiently involved in the negotiations. Will the European plan, that is the security guarantees, be integrated into the proposals that Mr. Vitkov will present to Russian leaders tomorrow? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm not entirely sure this question will be very interesting to the French audience. Is it interesting though? Right? Okay. I understand, that's fine. Well, there certainly won't be any big sensations today. I won't be announcing them now because I still want to hold some further consultations. I have planned them for my return to Ukraine. I will definitely do that. My choice depends, and I'll tell you honestly, on several factors: the direction of management and whether we focus more on diplomacy or other directions that are very important. Undoubtedly, we have truly honorable people here in Ukraine, and this is something I am quite certain you will all witness for yourselves. Well, let's just wait for a moment so that we don't immediately restrict all the potential options, if that's at all possible.
Regarding your second question, I think it's important that we look at things realistically. There are American mediation efforts. This is very good. What kind of pressure does this put on Russia? Do you want peace or do you not? And this is such a new form of initiative. I would like to once again welcome the efforts of President Trump and his team since February of this year. They initially proposed a ceasefire. Do you recall, in March of this year, President Zelensky stated, "Yes, I agree to a ceasefire." The Russians said no. Following that, we had our proposal in June. We developed it right here in London. The Russians once again rejected it. Then there was Anchorage, an American proposal for mediation. The Russians refused again. So the Americans are making new proposals. They are mediators. We will wait to see what the Russians' response will be, if they are ready to stop the war and sign a peace agreement. This is important, so we need to thank the Americans for these efforts. I understand that the Russians have already refused 3 or 4 times, saying no. So they are not in a big hurry. And on the one hand, we have a president who says yes to everything. We support him. But it's not a peace deal yet. We know it brings us closer, but it's a huge task. It's about territories. Your colleague just asked about it. This is your president's responsibility. No one but him can make this decision, and this is absolutely clear to American negotiators. Mr. Rubio also pointed this out, and he is right. As for the sanctions from the European side, the Europeans will decide according to the plan they themselves will agree on. And I think it's important to see that this American mediation concerns Americans and Russians, and they are negotiating regarding Ukraine, speaking with us, but it's not a complete plan. Ukraine needs to be at the negotiating table, Russia and the Europeans. This isn't quite ready yet. And since February of this year, we've been preparing. We're considering security guarantees, specifically, which are important for 2 reasons. First, for this peace to be lasting for Ukraine. And so Ukraine isn't again a victim of aggression, as in 2014 and 2022. And for us, Europeans, it's important to contain Russian power, so it doesn't come closer to us. And here we are preparing, making predictions, planning, and we are also ready to negotiate. Likewise, we will complete the work, as I already told your colleague, regarding the issue of frozen Russian assets. So, There is a specific number of questions that constitute the integral components of the peace plan, where the Europeans are playing a very central role, because several of the issues I brought up during this press conference cannot be resolved without the active involvement of Europeans. But American mediation must be welcomed, and I truly hope that it will allow us to obtain clear indications of Russia's genuine desire to move towards a peaceful resolution, and that this desire truly exists. But I want to emphasize once again our solidarity, our support for the Ukrainian people and their leaders, to the leaders of Ukraine. Each and every time that we speak of peace, and when we are waiting for messages from the Russian side, we witness bombs that are falling upon Ukrainian territory, taking the lives of innocent civilians, systematically destroying vital infrastructure, bringing forth cold and so many other hardships. However, the facts remain stubbornly clear, and we must continue to support Ukraine and strive to build a lasting peace through negotiations. Thank you. Announcer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.